Hello, everybody, and welcome to the latest show. Tonight, I am joined by one of our patrons, a wonderful lady named Amber, who reached out to the channel and donated quite well, and I appreciate it to no end. But I also wanted to thank everybody who has given to the channel, Carrie, Diana, and also our wonderful Aisha. Tonight, we're going to be talking about the next two shows, which would be season 2, episode 1 of Netflix's series Haunted. This one is one I don't have a whole lot of experience with. Demons and such are not they're not in my wheelhouse, though. For some reason, because of my guide, I can identify them immediately when I'm close to them, even their name. It's very disconcerting thing, almost like somebody suddenly slotted a chip into my head like Neo, and doink, there's a name right there, which is kind of upsetting, because then I get the entire butcher's bill of what they've done throughout history. And so it's not really a whole lot of fun. But the next episode we're doing, because we're going to jump over the cult one, is one that because there's nothing really supernatural that happens in that one. We have to jump to the third episode, which is Spirits from Below. And the name is quite apt, and we'll get to the reason why. But welcome, Amber. Thank you for joining us.
Hi, Sean. Thanks for having me.
If anybody's watched and seen the comments, Amber is one of the people who speaks the most avidly from the side since we switched to Sunday night. She's one of our fans from down under. Thank you for joining us tonight. And so I'm going to let you start, because you probably have a lot of questions or a lot of things to comment on this episode with Dawn and the Cottage of the Breezes.
Sure. So yeah, did you want me to just run over the how it all starts there? And
whatever you feel like talking about from the episode, but yeah, it's up to you.
Look, I found it to be quite a disturbing episode. It basically starts at Cottages of Gentle Breeze, which, as we were saying before, we're not sure if that's the actual name. Probably would be quite wise of them to change it if they have. Which sounds as though it was a nursing facility for predominantly patients with dementia. The story comes from one of the nurses there, Dawn Matthews, and they received a patient who the owner didn't want to receive because she was showing nil signs of dementia. But I don't know how it seemed to you, Sean. It seemed to me as though Jackie's daughter kind of just wanted to offload her.
That it seemed to me, when you're dealing with somebody who's whether it's dementia or some other kind of mental disorder, the family, if they're not prepared, really wants to plonk them somewhere and run. And in her case, we don't know how long the symptoms of what was going on with her stretched back to. And so she may have been really in a rush to get away from what the staff would later find out.
Yeah, I mean, from the nurse's perspective, they didn't really consider that she had any neurological or physical health problems when she was there. They said that she very obviously did not want to be there and was very unhappy about being put there. But then they quite rapidly noticed a deterioration with her when she went inside that room, and things sort of went down from there.
She was always angry, and then the first thing that happened was a physical manifestation was cold air in the room. And
that's right.
The cold air in the room, I can tell you from when I was something that hunted me, followed me home, and nobody would listen. My room became like ice in the middle of summer. You could actually walk in and gouts of steam come out of your mouth.
Well, that's what they were saying would happen when the nurses would go into this room, and they reported it to the owner, and I think the owner didn't believe them. And
Even after her talking in tongues and the deep growling that everybody was reporting, and that couldn't keep a picture of Christ on the wall.
yeah, that's right. They sort of brought that to the attention of the owner, who also didn't believe them. And then the owner went into the room and was also unable to put the Christ on the wall. It just would not stay up, which was quite odd.
And you have a medical background, so you can say that if a person stops eating and drinking, they can go without eating for a long time, but without liquid, as far as I know, 3 days is usually the cutoff, unless I'm really wrong.
No, you're correct. You can't survive without water for very long at all. So it was quite awful. This poor lady Jackie, um, uh, she went into a state where her body just shut down. And look, I don't know how long ago this facility was operating. The ladies that they were interviewing were uh, were sort of middle-aged women, and this was at the start of her career. So this was several decades ago. Um, but yeah, it was quite terrible how they described what was going on with this poor woman.
And she stopped eating, and after
Mm.
drinking, they couldn't get her to eat or drink anything, but she still was alive. And this was after
Mm.
3 weeks. 3 weeks of not eating or drinking. So how in the world was she still alive?
Yeah,
And she also stopped
sounds quite.
eliminating. No urination,
Yeah,
no defecation.
yeah, it
So,
sounds horrendous. They
so
did describe, some things which were, which were akin to dementia, such as when she bit one of the nurses. But I mean, when you get to where she's some of the things that happened after that, that's when the show gets quite bizarre, and certainly can't be attributed to anything within the physical realm.
mm. But at the no elimination, the no eating, no drinking at 3 weeks,
Mm.
that's where at that point she's just running on whatever it was that was controlling her. She wasn't really there anymore. And they
No,
tried to give her a sponge bath, and she wouldn't let them. And that's because there's no element that's the ally of evil. The four main elements cause them discomfort. Water doesn't have to be blessed, but blessing makes it stronger. Same thing with any of the other three main elements. And I don't mean elements on the periodic chart. I mean elements as the elements, like air, earth, fire, water. And so she didn't want to be washed because that was going to make things uncomfortable for this thing that was riding in her skin.
mm.
And yeah, as soon as they tried to attempt the wash, that was when she bit the girl and bit down and held on hard. And uh, I think I remember hearing something about the human bite is frightening because we have a lot more jaw strength than most people think, and we know where to bite and we know how to hold on a lot better than most animals that do it on instinct. So it whatever however she bit this lady, it was probably ridiculously painful and extremely frightening.
Yeah, I've got to tell you, my heart really went out to these nurses. Especially Dawn was quite obviously still terrified and quite traumatized from the event, and quite often broke down in tears throughout the show.
Um, Her friend, was it Stacy, tried to go in there and recite
Yeah,
the Lord's Prayer, and her reward was to be slashed across her back. Now, the
yeah,
thing
I
that
think they
was,
mentioned it.
go ahead,
Sorry, go on.
go
No, I
ahead.
think I was just going to say, I think that they mentioned a couple of the nurses witnessing nurses and the care staff there witnessing events, of physical assault without actually having any contact with the patient. And she actually, at one stage, ran out and in front of the rest of the staff took her uniform off because she um, had marks on her back, which they all witnessed.
Yeah, that she said to her it felt like a snake slithering over her back. And as soon as she said that, I remember one of the times when I'd dealt with something metaphysical and left me with marks all over my back. And it was when I was early in my learning, and I had a very strong dream, and it felt like there were like heavy ropes, like a python laid across parts of my back. And when I got up, the pain was outrageous, and I had bruising. But it felt like I was laying on top of a segmented python. And it was when they said the snake slithering part, it really freaked me out, because I'm thinking that's must be part of how the manifestation applies itself before the damage sets in.
Right. Okay.
And then this thing was also not frightened of one of the things I get asked a lot, especially when it comes to demonic things, is they say, well, isn't something proof against fill in the blank when it comes to a demon or whatever? And they think that there's some things that are so untouchable that, like a cross or some religious iconography is proof. And it usually isn't, because without energy being placed within it so that it becomes a focus, it doesn't really work so well unless you have a lot of your own personal energy to enhance it. And she was wearing her mother's rosary, and the lady stole it from her and then jammed it into her rectum, which was like a scene right out of The Exorcist, which I don't want to put on.
Yeah.
I don't want to recite the scene.
No, I agree. That was pretty awful. Pretty horrible. I did want to ask you though, like, this is one thing that they're attributing to a demon, and I don't know about you, I find that, like, quite often when you watch these shows, and I quite enjoy watching these shows. I think I got through these seasons of Haunted in a couple of sittings. So I binge watched them. One thing that I have noticed is people tend to refer to any kind of negative association that's not physical with a demon. And I just wanted to ask you, like, my impression was that it's something that's, like, actually really uncommon.
It's extremely rare
on that?
Coming across a real demon, and I've only come across 2, and one of them wouldn't even let me near. So, but that was because I went looking for one of them and I was asked to come help with the other. And but you find things and that's a demon. That's demon. I mean, literally put the big D, demon, over the name. But demonic, saying that it's like a demon or that acts like it, that you'll come across more often, because there's quite a few things that have moved on that want, if you think of an angel or a person who wants to become good as ascending, something that has passed on that doesn't and wants to become bad would be descending, and they devolve. I've come across several of these things, which aren't really demons, but are trying to fashion themselves into some variant thereof until I remove them. Now, at the first look, they can be very scary because they're quite strong and they're gathering energy. And a lot of them have done so by sequestering and holding and draining other spirits or people that are alive, leeching energy from them. And the last couple of places I've encountered this were, one was in an area near the Trail of Tears, and the land was soaked in huge amounts of misery. The land literally glowed black, and there was a thing on the land that had killed 3 of this lady's neighbors, which don't live close by because it's all farm territory. And things were affecting her, and by the time I'd come to help her, it's realized I was there to stop it, and it started to choke her as she was running out of the house, literally choking her like something had wrapped a garrote around her neck, and I had to pull it off of her. And
Was this
no,
like how you were saying in the mimic episode that things were attached to the ground?
yes, sometimes it's the
Right.
land more than anything else. And we did an episode on Amityville, and that was literally everything that happened in that house is attached to that land because of the things that have come before. Nothing there is new, and the psychics that were brought there, that was what they were trying to explain. That's what they'd said. And uh, there was even a mimic type of creature there. They had, this was 2 years after the last events that had happened in the movie The Exorcist, and they set up cameras and brought in a second volley of psychics, including the ones who have the doll Annabelle. And the one of the pictures that they captured was of a boy with no eyes, and there was no children there. And that was up on the second floor. The cameras were set to just go off at random times. There was no set like every so many minutes, blam, 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 it takes a picture. And
Okay.
so there's an example of a mimic right there, because these things are amalgamates. They are all of the things that have come before, all of the energies that have been drained out of them, scooped together, and then they can basically take a form if they need to. And so with the demonic things that I've encountered that aren't demons, they can shape the way that they look. Horns, red skin, sharp teeth, anything they think will get you scared. And
Right. Okay.
I'm pretty jaded. And the real demons, they don't like to be seen. And when you do see them in their real form, it can be pretty horrific. Like I got the first one that I banished hit me really hard, and I only caught sight of her for a second as I trapped her within the pentacle that I then sent her away. But I wasn't able to close the thing fast enough and back away. And she had 6 arms, and she hit me with all of her the ones on the right in right here. And it hit me so hard, it sent me flying across the room. She'd been sending furniture and stuff flying around the room, making the whole house shake. Hitting me was probably the least she could have done. But as to her, she was being pulled away. She wanted to make sure that I remembered. And to this day, it still affects the way that I chew, because I can't chew on this side. So real demons are really dangerous, but demonic stuff is things that want to be like a demon. Think of them as posers.
Okay, thanks for explaining that, because to be honest, I actually lumped it all in together, so I did not understand that difference at all. So they actually ended up getting someone in to try to do an exorcism, which I found interesting because, I mean, I clearly watched too many movies. From the movies that I've watched, I understood exorcisms to be extremely rare, and had to be had a long process, had to be approved by the Catholic Church and these sorts of things. Like I said, maybe I watched too many movies. What do you know about this?
Well, there are several sects out there that will do it on request. You don't have to wait for the Catholic Church. Some churches will do it far more readily, but they gave it away when the lady said the owner asked people from Ohio. Now there's a church there that the people who are currently handling it are ones that work to go and actively go after demons, and they've been on the show Ghost Adventures a couple of times. Father or Bishop Gillette, and I can't remember them all. I actually have the information saved somewhere on one of my browsers because we featured them when we spoke about the good stuff that they have done, but they took over for the people who would have been around about 20 something years ago, because the bishop and all of his retinue aren't old enough to have been around at that time. So
they didn't say what year it was, but I get the impression this was a few decades ago this happened.
Yeah, quite more than likely quite a while back. Let me see if I can find the link real quick. I had it saved in haunting files. Da, 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 da. Our team of exorcists. Yeah, the new ones moved to Atlanta. They moved out of Ohio and moved to Atlanta, and that's the Order of Exorcists. The Georgia division
Okay.
is the new one. It's Bishop Brian D. Ouellette, and let's see. Then there's Senior Mary Joan, Sister Maximiliana, and their staff grows and shrinks all the time. But these guys are they're part of an order that will run around to do this because the Catholic Church tends to drag their feet. The psychics that used to go out and do stuff for them to try and goad them into going out and helping people when they believed that there was a possession involved, the people who have Annabelle, oh my gosh, I can never remember their names. I'm so terrible on names. I think it's my personal dyslexia. And
You mean
they're
Annabelle from Ed and Lorraine Warren? Or?
the Warrens. Thank you. Yeah, that's them. The Warrens used to work for the Catholic Church and tried to get them to go out and help, but it was
Yeah,
like
that's
getting
right.
behind an elephant and pushing. So
Oh, okay.
that's a classic example. And then when they do, they sometimes don't apply themselves quite so well, such as the Exorcist movie. Need to do one of those exposés like Joel and I done on that one, because that's a big one. That was based on a true
Oh,
story
yeah.
as well. A little boy who was possessed, not a little
Oh,
girl. Little boy who was possessed,
yeah,
and
okay.
6 different exorcists tried to free him, and eventually he just died. He
Oh,
just
man.
It didn't work out for him. There was no happy ending with that one.
Well, I mean,
So
they, from what I could see from this show, when they attempted this exorcism, they were unsuccessful, said something's evil in there, and left them to it.
and that's really there was that's a situation where you really don't want to leave people on their own, because this thing was dangerous, and these poor nurses were completely out of their element. I
Yeah, they actually said that people resigned because they couldn't look after her. And there was just a couple of nurses, and 2 of them were there in the room talking about this, that were left, to help, try to help this poor lady.
And Dawn was the last person to be the last nurse to be hurt, because she was the last one to brave that, and she got a puncture wound right here.
Right? Yeah, I
Now,
forgot about that one.
if I'm correct, if that puncture wound had been in the wrong place, that's the artery, the main artery that leads out of the heart, could have been punctured.
The aortic arch.
Yeah.
It depends on the depth and location.
And according to the person who was looking at it, the darn thing looked like somebody took an ice pick and rammed it right into her. So, lucky that she didn't get it in a absolutely dangerous spot. And then right before, I think her name is Jackie, before she died, she levitated,
Jackie.
sat up, turned and looked at him and said, "Get out."
Yeah, yeah, and then she died. This is where, you know, this is where it gets weird. You know what I mean? Like, they'd already experienced all these things, which I'm sure other people could have tried to write off as other things. But when multiple people walk into the room and there's this lady floating off the bed, yeah, there's something odd's going on there. That
Yeah,
was,
up until that last bit, you could just say that it was hysteria, or well, the clawing, I couldn't, but there's some people there's a line on Science that says that even stigmata can be mentally created, so some person could have done it to herself somehow, although I don't buy it.
it is
But
extraordinary what the brain can do.
but levitating in the air, sitting up, and then falling down dead right there in the room in front of multiple people, that's not going to be that's not going to be easy to write off at all, because it's not like somebody's just going to imagine that it happened, that the person just took off into the air and then did what they did and then fell to the bed dead.
Yeah, and multiple nursing staff. So is this something that this lady brought with her, do you think, or do you think it was already in that room?
It was in her already, because that room was from. I mean, they said that they'd never had anything happen in there before, and the lady was already
Yeah,
acting agitated. So I was, because
yeah.
once again, when it comes to demons or possessions, I don't know a damn thing. So I looked this up. There's,
Probably no more
yeah,
than me.
I'm perfectly okay with admitting when I don't know anything, because, well, as Data said in Star Trek: The Next Generation, the gateway to learning are three words: I don't know. First, you have to admit you have no idea, and then you can move forward from there. But the three stages of demonic possession apparently are manifestation and infestation. Then comes oppression, then full possession. So manifestation and infestation is apparently, and I'm reading off of a website, so there's going to be some level of the person's opinion and experience in this. I don't know who wrote this, but it says this can affect houses, forests. I don't believe in the forest part.
All right.
I've never gone into a forest that felt, yeah, possessed. Cars, dolls. I haven't seen one that's possessed. I've seen ones that have been haunted by things that are bad, including Annabelle. They finally admitted to that. You name it, infestation can take place within it. Think of it as a form of haunting, with the express idea of the demon introducing itself to the intended target through surreptitious means. That could mean pretending to be the ghost of a lost little girl or a dead relative, or even coming through a Ouija board session or seance with the express purpose of breaking down your resistance. In this case, remember in the beginning, when she first got dropped in that room, she's saying, "That's my friend." So this
Yeah,
person
that's right.
was probably commiserating with her because she could hear it. The demon is seeking approval at this stage, approval to stay. It almost needs permission to begin to reveal its true self. It will slowly increase in tempo as the demon gains strength, as the chosen individual loses theirs. They don't lose theirs, they get sucked dry. Think of them as a Capri Sun packet or a packet of juice. They're getting drained. So by the time she got there, she was already at that stage. This thing was already her friend.
Mm.
So, and then comes the second part, which is we move on to stage 2, which is oppression. This is where the entity makes its true identity known and moves into full attack mode. This can be physical, mental, and psychical. Psychic, I guess that's a word. I, okay, increased paranormal activity, bites, scratches, and even sexual assaults may take place. At this point, the victim may call in a psychic or a paranormal investigation group. This can be dangerous if they do not know what they are dealing with, and will often make things worse. Yay, somebody who actually gets that right. Hey, whoever you are, I want to credit you. Who wrote this? Michael Murchie, you are my friend. I like you. I'm going to link this. I'm going to put this in there so that if people, because dude, you are speaking the gospel. Thank you, my friend. Let me put this on a banner. Oh my gosh. That makes me so happy. Okay, here we go. Add the banner and play the banner. There we go. So now you guys can see it. So that's really awesome. Dude, I'm going to come back to your page and read more of what you've written. And then at this point, the victim may call in as, okay, depression is often a symptom at this stage, and as the will and faith of the individual is reaching a breaking point, the demonic entity will move into the third and final stage, which is possession. In this final and most dangerous stage, the demon now has sufficient power and hold over the individual to close the deal, so to speak. Typically, the person affected will have little to no self-worth, will, or faith left, which sounds exactly like Jackie. The evil entity will be in control more often than not, and the influenced may well be hearing voices telling them to harm others or themselves. Exactly what we saw in this. Manipulation is at an all-time high, and the very soul of the individual is at stake. In the worst of cases, the demon may even have control of the host body like a parasite. Yeah, that's about right. Which is really all at the base level what a demon is. The demon's goal at this point is to drive the affected to suicide and to take as many people with them on the way, thus condemning their soul to an eternity in hell. And then he goes into how to get rid of the demon. So, and that's, you guys now have the link there. So hopefully y'all enjoy that. Hopefully in the light of day and not at night, because the rest of the reading was kind of frightening. So yeah, enjoy it at your leisure, but not when the sun is down, please. And then
Please
comes
follow the light.
the final act of the story.
Yeah.
And people getting put into that room because it's okay. It's all in your imagination. Even Dawn saying that.
Man, that was quite awful.
So by name, it was Maria. Went in there
Sorry, I missed that.
completely healthy, dies of a heart attack.
Yeah.
Then comes Beverly. She said she could feel something in the room. All of her organs shut down.
Yeah, Beverly was the one that told Dawn, so there's something evil in here, I don't want to be in here. And Dawn, who was crying, was, to the camera, is now saying, she told her, no, everything's fine. Yeah. It's not fine, Dawn.
Then comes the last one, which is Jacqueline. Died of renal failure. Her kidneys were in perfect shape. They tried to put a catheter in her, and all that came out was pus.
And these were all in, it sounds as though quite a short period of time as well. And then, thank goodness, they get the idea to maybe close the room up.
And now there's a new owner there, and apparently they all left because Dawn obviously didn't work there anymore. I could definitely not see her wanting to continue there. I can infer this because there's just would be no way that I would want to stick around there either, since they closed the home down.
Yeah, that's right. They said they closed it down, but have recently reopened, and once again, Haunted leaves us hanging.
So, I hope nobody gets put into that room. I would hope that nobody would go in there. I would hope that somebody with the ability to cleanse it would go in there and get rid of it. I would hope they would hire somebody who could fix this problem, but they leave us on a high note, and we have no idea. That's probably the biggest problem.
It is the Haunted way, Sean.
It is the way that they close out each of these shows, and they leave you completely without any resolution, because it's like the end of a Twilight Zone episode. They want you to be going, okay, and
yeah.
So where some people would say burn the whole place to the ground, you don't want to do that, because all you're going to do is let it out. You don't want it to run free. As long as it's in there, it's got its strength centered in one place, like Sauron with the One Ring. It's stuck there. So keep it there. Go and find a way to be able to drive it back to hell. And if you can, they can't come back out for a long, long time. That's the reason why they don't like being exorcised, why they don't like being driven away, because then they can't be brought back for hundreds of years. And it usually requires some kind of a goober who wants to get some kind of energy or power or influence in the world, calling to something that they think will make them able to twist fate in their benefit. And that's usually how things come to the world. So then comes the next story. The wondrous events of Elle and her family.
Yeah, poor Elle.
The entire family got to see it. So I got the feeling that, and I looked at, they actually didn't put so much of a filter on Elle. Elle was not gifted. Most of the family is not gifted at all. So this was a shock, because I'm looking at them, and this is the first time they didn't put an uber dark filter on the people. Because I guess there were so many people in there when they would focus on Elle, they couldn't do so because of her black hair and her darker complexion. If you do that, she would just basically disappear. So I was fortunate in this episode, and I was able to get a couple of good looks at her. Now, she's not gifted, and I'm not saying that she's a mundane, but she just didn't have. It's in some cases you have people you've got people who go to haunted houses, and then you have gifted folk who every house they go to is haunted. And that is a thing, and it's hard to separate them because they won't usually talk about it. But I was able to look at her and go, she's not seeing this because she's got the gifts. It's just that place is horrifyingly bad. And they didn't mention a state, but they mentioned a city of Carson. And
Okay.
Carson, I believe, is California, and that's near where I used to live. Carson is one of the older cities in Southern California, and it has a lot of activity because it dates back
Right.
quite a ways, as does San Pedro, which is not too far from it. And that had multiple, I could actually go on and on about some of the hauntings there, including one of them where a gentleman nearly got hung to death who went in there disbelieving that there was anything there. The house is gone, but they
Okay.
built another house right on top of it, and the people, they don't stay. So this is a similar situation.
Right.
Carson, San Pedro, parts of Gardena. So I have some experience with this area. And the Polynesian / Asian populace spread itself out over large portions of Gardena and into Carson City, I should say Carson.
Right.
So I know
Well,
that
this
it's not a
family
good
was
place.
Filipino, and yeah, and it actually kind of, I just kind of wanted to shout at the screen at some stage because they're all sitting down there talking about it decades later, but it turns out that they all had their own individual experiences there at the time, and nobody talked about it.
It's hilarious to me because they all are saying, well, we don't talk about this.
Yeah.
We don't want to give
We
it
didn't want to feed
energy.
this energy.
But that's not how it
I don't
works.
know. I get that. Like that's that's pretty common in Western culture too. People. I think for our culture, a lot of people don't want to talk about things. A, because they don't want to give it energy, but B, because they don't want people to think that they're nuts. But these guys, they were saying, "Oh, we all knew it was haunted. We all knew there were ghosts there, but we just didn't talk about it."
And every last one of them had some level of an experience or horror. And I have to tell you from experience, not talking about it doesn't make it go away. It actually, it's like a bully. The more that you don't deal with it, the 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 stronger they get, because what they feed on is your
Oh,
fear. The more that you're afraid, the more you feel isolated. The less you talk about it, the more you're going to feel completely estranged and alone. And that's one of the things that they all said, that they all felt like they couldn't talk
yeah.
to anybody about it. And that, whether it's
Man, I
cultural
felt
or just
bad
they're
for
worried.
Elle. Yeah, she was a lonely girl, that Elle.
And
Poor
her
thing.
mother was seeing it right from the beginning. So she knew it was there
Yeah,
and told her, if it won't scare you if you don't look at it. Now, the first time I saw this
great
episode,
advice.
yeah, the first time I saw this episode was before I'd had a chance to work with Barbara. Now,
Oh
you guys
yeah.
are going to hear me talk about this a lot for the people on the channel who haven't heard of Barbara Faith Charlton. She works with me with my PTSD from all these different things that have happened to me. And let me tell you, this one's one we have to work on a lot, because there are moments when I was a kid, when I was isolated, and these things would come after me. And not just when I was in England, but when I was home as well. And they would grab me, smack me, cut me, yank me out of bed so that I would get pulled towards the shadows. Um, and I learned to sleep on my face, which was bad. I would wake up with a stiff
Mm.
neck and the beginning of a migraine almost every day because my head was constantly pushed backwards, just so that I wouldn't look. So that whole, if you don't look, it can't scare you. Oh, no, it definitely can. And they get, as the story goes on, it gets worse. The antagonism goes up. And
Yeah.
so the not looking at it part had nothing to do with it, because eventually, you know, they just would manifest.
Yeah, so Elle saw the figures quite clearly, and then I'm assuming it was her older sister. They didn't really show her name or identify her, but she said that the dolls were laughing in her room. That's not creepy at all. Um, and yeah, poor little Elle got so scared she peed herself and then proceeded to get in trouble for it.
Yeah, mom was angry at her for being afraid, and it's because she was cornered. Now, my big thing, and I'm still working with Barbara on it, is huh, the peekers, the ones. Mm.
I have no idea what a peeker is.
um, Sorry, I'm trying to maintain. I haven't worked with Barbara on this. They peek around corners at you.
Oh, peekers.
Yeah. Yeah, this is one that I have to work with her on. Oh, mm. And that will look around corners. That will, and several at once. There'll be more than one, and they just imagine someone's head poking around a wall or a corner and looking at you, and then
Okay,
another one right above that one or right below that one, and we're talking.
I'll give that a miss, Sean.
Sorry, and faces that are obviously not human. Sorry. Oh, I'm trying not to go into a panic attack. I'm trying not to think about it completely. Just brush it as
Mm.
easily as I can. And that's these things will they do this in order to elicit a fear, and they're going to scare you. And they cornered her. She was going up to her room to go to and they caught her in the hallway, and there was the old lady and the tall man there in front of her, the little girl behind her. There was no place she could
Mm.
go. She backed up and the urine flew. And I totally
Ugh.
can understand that. And in my case, they would keep me so scared I would stay in my bed. I wouldn't go anywhere. I would, and as a result, I had so many urinary tract infections. I'm a massive scar tissue. I can't. I think I can go maybe an hour and a half without having to use the restroom. And it's
Mm.
painful if I don't. And so I'm a mess. But that's one of
Mm.
the ways they get you, is if they can keep you frightened, they can keep you under their thumb. So it's not like this was a minor thing, especially if she lost control of her bladder. I've actually had that occur where
Oh
I
no.
got so scared I just urinated, and that was the thing that came after me in Wales. Uh, when it was blatantly apparent the thing wasn't just going to move on, I just peed myself right there. I just all over the bed. There was So I have every sympathy for Elle because I know what it's like.
Yeah, I can't imagine that kind of fear, to be honest. And yeah, then poor Elle had this little girl who, to be honest, the actor that they got to play kind of resembles Wednesday from the Addams Family. So,
It,
like,
it
I mean, as if it wasn't creepy enough,
it's
she's now got Wednesday following her around.
but it was like a twisted Wednesday, because Wednesday at the very least was, she wasn't murderous, and this girl, she definitely crossed the line into an evil uh, Laura Ingalls from Little House on the Prairie look.
Oh man, they, when she's like passive aggressively walking around the room, starting to trash the joint, which then Elle gets blamed for, and half their house burns down.
And supposedly it's all her fault. And then uh oh my gosh, the what was it, the little girl then, I mean, after turning evil, then pushes her into attempting to commit suicide. Hands her a
Yeah,
whole
when she was
bottle of
a
pills,
teenager.
pills
Yeah,
and a razor blade.
yeah, this was this was pretty awful. Poor Elle just said that she just couldn't see her life going on with this Wednesday chick following her around everywhere. And yeah, I actually really felt for Elle talking about that on this show. I mean, it would have been hard enough just coming on that sort of a show and sharing those experiences, but then she's basically coming out to all the relatives about what she went through when she attempted suicide.
And when she did that, she made herself actually way more vulnerable to them. Um, Made herself a much easier manipulated target because they broke her will. And then later on, when she moved back in after she'd gotten out of there, married a gentleman named Chris, and then they had a kid and had to move
Oh
back.
yeah, when she started saying that, like like she met Chris, who's like, you know, the love of her life. I was like, oh yes, great. Let's let's go with that and get out of here. And then she says they moved into the house. I was like, what?
And
Don't do that.
after a few months, things started. So nothing happened right away, of course not. And then she started acting like she was in the pre states of possession, getting really angry and agitated.
But
Which
only in the house.
only while she was in the house, because this thing had
Mm.
enough drive and had enough energy that it could center on her. It could control her moods and emotions and make her do things. And then there was the nephew, Jerome, was it?
Yeah, Jerome, poor kid.
The kid.
Another,
Yeah,
individual occurrence.
and that's where that evil Wednesday Adams got him to go over. Uh,
Wednesday.
and then she tried to drown him in the well.
Yeah. Left the
And,
poor kid with a complex about water.
yeah, I could definitely understand that. And let's see, then there was the daughter encounters. Then, okay, the kid, apparently they're there for long enough that Elle and Chris's daughter is growing up.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
she encounters the red boy.
This does my head in. Like, let's bring a child up here because it was so good for me.
I can't. I would have been saying, Mom, let's sell this place and get out of here. Dad's passed on already. Let's sell this place. Let's let somebody else deal with it, or not. Hey, let's burn it to the ground and collect the insurance money. That's cool with me. But get out of there nonetheless, because it's, to me, understanding that these people are living in a situation that's just like this means that they're living in essentially some kind of radioactivity. It's almost the same kind of thing. How many rads are you going to take before you croak? Nobody really knows. I mean, we know for sure how long you have to go before you end up like Oppenheimer's friend who moved the whatchamacallit back over the isotope and died, a couple of days later from radiation poisoning. But, that slow tick upwards, it's like the frog in the pot of boiling water. You're boiling long before you even know that you're boiling. It just doesn't make sense to me to stick around for it. I was stuck in it as a kid, but these are adults.
Yeah, I did not get that. Why would you raise a child in that house? I understand sometimes financially options are limited, but priorities, right?
And then I believe the culmination was for Elle was when this thing finally decided we're going to pick up a 20-pound weight, or in your case, I think it's like about a 7.5 kilo dumbbell, and then slug Chris in the head. And she, wow, he wrestles with her and then drags her out of the house. Now, how was he prescient enough to understand that getting her out of the house is going to fix this?
Yeah, exactly, because he knew something wasn't right there, but they just didn't talk about it. What did they call it? The mumo. I think that's the Tagalog word for ghost.
Yeah.
They just don't talk about it. But yeah, you were saying that I think even after her daughter saw the red boy who used to play with her, that still wasn't enough.
And he was trying to get her to jump off the roof.
Jump off the roof. Yeah.
Oh,
the red boy, who they called the red boy because they realized that he was covered in blood.
It's one of the things that I noticed is that there are certain details that some people will lose when they're looking at ghosts when they're younger, which is, for me, I didn't, because when I would see them and I realized they were a ghost, it was imprinted fully, so I didn't lose it. But Janice used to say that when she first encountered ghosts as a kid and could see them, she thought they were the clay people because they died of extreme burns, second-degree burns. So they were kind of charred. To a child, to her, it looked like it was clay, like they were covered in clay. But now, when I see them and they're in their death state, I see them as they were in their death state. And if I see them when they are if they died and they aren't showing their death state, if it's not a thing for them, then I just see them as a normal person, like the husband of my Aunt Olga's mother. we're not related by blood. So when I would see him, he looked like a guy who'd come to visit her mom. But when you're seeing the kids and you see them in their, or these people, these ghosts, and in their death state, I think for some of them, the ghosts are relying on the children to sort of neglect some of those details, because they don't usually see them as important. They just see a person, and unless they've been trained to know that they're dangerous, they won't note the details.
And children have such a beautifully simple way of describing things as well.
So like, yeah, Red Boy. Yeah, like when I was a kid, if I was asked what I saw, I could actually give you a full description. Like, so I was abnormal. So, but children, normally speaking, they gloss over these things because they're just, oh, that's a person, that's a man, that's a lady, this is a. So they don't throw in the extra details. To them, it's not important, and that's what these things rely on, is that the children will not immediately realize that there's that they're facing something abnormal or mortal. That's what predators in the real world will do as well. If they can put on enough of a false front long enough to be able to reach out and grab that kid and run, that's what they'll do. That's
yeah, so the daughter seeing Red Boy wasn't enough to make him decide, hey, we better leave. But then the dad, Chris, gets belted over the head with a barbell. Is that what it was? Like a dumbbell?
7.5 kilo barbell.
And then they're out of there. And I was just like, yes.
So then she goes back to talk to her mom, who's now in the throes of Alzheimer's years later. And she said, too bad they're after you.
Yeah, creepy. So, like, I mean, you were saying, like, you couldn't understand why the mum would live there, but I don't know, it seemed to me like it didn't really bother her as much. And, yeah, it seemed that she recognised as well that they were really focused on Elle. Why do you think that was?
Well, I think she knew that they were after Elle, and I think she was just, she didn't think she could do anything. She thought if Elle just didn't stop paying attention to them, they'd be okay. She'd be okay. That part of it, I think, part in her mind, she brought it onto herself, which is victim blaming. But that's some.
Why did they target Elle though?
Probably because she was the youngest in the house at the time. Remember, she was the youngest,
most vulnerable.
So she was the most vulnerable, and and also the most afraid. Her mother would say, if you don't look at him, don't be afraid. But she was still scared. There's a lot of terror involved in it. And so that means that she was a battery that they could leech off of easy. But the fact that mom knew, but was okay with it, to me, and I'm probably going to hear lots of negative comments about this, is akin to to a mother going, well, your boyfriend raped you on that date because of how you treated him, and it's your fault. So now we won't talk about it anymore. Ooh, it just feels like that all the way through.
Well, so that was kind of creepy how she was saying, oh, it's a shame that what did she say? It's a shame that they want to get you or something like that.
Let me see if I can take a look at this real quick. So, yes, it's too bad they want to get you.
They want to get you. And then in the Gullen, and this is something that I really want to ask you about, when she said, are these people from above or below? In Tagalog, she says subaba, which means the bottom.
Yeah, from below.
Creepy moment number 2. Mm-hmm. What does that mean?
She knew that they were being controlled by something that wanted to descend. It's the same idea as what we were talking about with the creatures, that the things who have passed on that want to descend and become demonic. This is the same idea. It's the same kind of thing where they're gathering enough suffering, pain, and energy. And because I'm not there, and I can't go to the house even because I'd need an address to go and look. I'd have to go and see.
Oh, don't worry, they sold it, so someone's probably going to call you soon for help.
And,
The poor
and
bastard that bought it.
I feel bad for whoever's in there, especially if they're going to be doing the same thing. If you ignore it, it'll go away. It's like saying,
Yeah.
it's like having a kid who's hitting you on the head with a hammer going, yeah, if you ignore them, they'll just go away. It's like, yeah, but in the meantime, the contusions. So, but
Every time
yeah,
my head hurts.
no way to go there and look and see. But I believe that it's an amalgamant as well, that this is a
Oh, okay.
conglomerate of consciousnesses that are working together. Um,
Not
I can't,
people that lived in the house as such.
it's the remnants of them. Now, one of
Right.
the important things that we have to understand is that this body has an interface between who we are and the flesh. There's the soul, um, which is which is us, and then there's the astral form, which is still not us, but it's, you think of it as an interface, sort of like putting on a glove to be able to control a virtual reality robot, that kind of thing. You're not the
Okay.
glove. You're not the virtual reality creature. You're the hand inside the glove, and that's what we literally are. Is we are the spirit inside the astral body that controls the body. But when we die, there's two deaths: this body, the astral body, and then we leave. Now, if you don't want to die, you can actually, and you're afraid of what comes next, some people hold on to the astral form and they'll stay in it. If they aren't and they pass on, then they'll leave the astral body behind. But the astral body has all of the memory and information and all that stuff, and it can be picked up and consumed, for lack of a better term, and it becomes part of whatever the thing is that's sticking around, and it's a source of energy so they don't lose themselves. However, they now pick up a whole new set of memories which are chaotic and can push the being into an insane state where they are even more evil or have more knowledge or more things that they can use, a bigger repertoire of information to use against the people in the house or whatever, as it grows stronger, as it descends.
Right.
Hence the reason why I think in the last half a year I've had to deal with 2, 3, 4 of them, and that's as the channel's gotten bigger and my reach to people who need help has gotten larger. I've encountered more of these things now, not demons, but still guys who want to be bad enough that they continue their tortured existence because they prefer that to whatever comes next.
Okay.
Which to me is frightening, because what comes next is a lot more of what we need than sticking around here, because moving on means shedding this life and getting ready for the next and getting ready for more knowledge and learning. And sometimes a lot of what they're afraid of is losing this self. This self is just a temporary personification of what you are while you're here. And they're afraid that the end of this is the end of everything. And it's not.
They're focused more on their ego than their spirituality.
And also, in some cases, it's the fear of repercussions. Like, well, I did wrong, so I'm going to roast in hell. I'm going to be punished. I'm going to see the people I did wrong, and they're going to wound me or inflict harm or whatever. Anything. They're just worried about retribution. And that's quite a bit of where this suffering comes from, is a fear of retribution.
We possibly don't handle discussing death very well in Western culture, do we?
No.
It's considered morbid, and to discuss death rather than pass over peacefully and prepare for your passing and prepare your family. And actually, I think that's a really fantastic idea to discuss such things with your family, to give yourself a peaceful way to pass over.
Yeah,
that's just my opinion.
For instance, I've told my wife, I said, please don't, for the love of God, do not bury me in the ground. My body is a bunch of spare parts. Please get everything off of me you can. Whatever's still working, give it to someone. I've got on my driver's license, I have the donor card already set up. It's actually permanent. It's part
I'm
of the
an organ
card.
donor too.
So all of my orders
Yeah.
are to give it to whoever needs anything, and then burn the rest. And there's a thing where you can actually, they will put you into the makeup of a
Yes.
sprouting tree. And I said, put me
Natural
in an oak
cemeteries.
and plant me somewhere where my shade will do good. Okay, please.
Yeah.
And
Forget
um,
all this like clearing land to put headstones in. Let's pop people under trees.
let's turn ourselves into something, or a fruiting tree or a peach tree or something that grows fruit.
That could be
And
weird.
well, we have an
I'd be down
apple
with
tree.
that.
We have an apple tree in the backyard where we spread my father-in-law's ashes. He was a wonderful person, and so now he's part of the makeup of the apples that the kids eat. Now that's
Yeah.
not saying they're eating him so much as he's part of the tree, and the tree. Where if we move from here, we can take the seeds with us and plant them, and then he will be with us there.
Oh wow, that's actually a beautiful idea.
Yeah. And that'll allow us to keep moving him wherever we move. And that's what I would like
I
to
don't
do.
know that everyone would be down with the idea of eating fruit from a tree that their relatives planted under, but at least a tree.
That's why I wanted to be in an oak, because then when my acorns fall, you can plant them somewhere else, and I'll be a part of every tree spread across the area.
I never even thought about that, but that's actually a really lovely idea.
There's a lady I helped in Australia. The first time I actually tried to stretch myself that far, and wow, she's on the West Coast, and that was really hard. Oh my gosh. It was like I was pulling against the edge of a leash to go and help her. And this nice lady actually handles people's remains, and she turns them into pottery, so that you, instead of having here's an urn full of
Wow.
ashes. So you've got this, a beautiful memorial she's made. And she was worried that she was attracting negative attention. She wasn't.
Oh,
In,
okay.
in fact, 3 guardians of that area watch over her from a house that stays empty, because it's like the, oh my gosh, what do they call it? Like bed and breakfast, Airbnb. Almost all the homes
Oh
around here
yeah.
are Airbnbs. And so they stay in that house, and they make sure that everything's cool. They've actually manifested themselves to her children a couple of times to help them feel safe, because they were worried, because they were like, oh, mom's dealing with all of these remains. Maybe it's a terribly bad idea. Far from it. And she turns them into these
Yeah.
beautiful works of art, so that you can always remember the person in your life that was closest to you. It's a similar idea. I like the tree idea because you don't have to worry about it falling and
Yeah.
breaking, but this is also just as beautiful, and beats the daylights out of being buried in a giant graveyard of all these. It's so unnatural. I'm telling you now, because I've been through so many, and quite a few of them are bad. The feel is bad. The land feels bad. The people who they feel that they're still stuck there, that they can't move on because they're not supposed to. And so they stay with their bodies because that's what they think they're supposed to do, and wait till the last trumpet sounds. And it's
Mm.
such a bad idea.
Man, I'm just a regular person, so like I don't really have any of those problems with graveyards, but just purely from the perspective of just this wasted, beautiful land, full of dead bodies and rocks. I don't understand it myself.
Or when there's
But
flooding
each
and the
to their
body,
own.
or when there's flooding in some of these areas,
Oh,
and the bodies pop up out of the ground.
yes.
That's
Yeah, I
that's
think
what
that happened in Tasmania. They had to like relocate a whole graveyard.
it's what was happening in Wales when I was there as a kid, because the flooding brought all these bodies up out of the bogs where these
Oh
people were
man.
killed or sacrificed. And
Oh heck.
so, so there's no point. There's no point to it. If you want to pass on the body, it's all temporary. It's a spacesuit. When you're done functioning in this spacesuit has no more purpose. It doesn't need to be
It
preserved.
reminds me of the Matrix when you talk about stuff like that.
Yeah, it is. It's just, this is just a spacesuit. Once you're done with this, and you're done with this space, and you're done with this suit, it's good. It's done. You don't need to preserve it. You don't need to do anything special with it. get rid of it, move on. In many cultures in the East, they know that it can cause a lot of confusion if the body is held prepared and in state, and it takes a long time to get that confusion to end. So,
So donate your organs, people, and get buried under a tree.
I wholeheartedly recommend it, because the life you save won't be your own, may not be your relatives, but by God,
Doesn't
until
matter.
until we can grow them in a vat like a geranium, please, seriously.
Hey, a petri dish.
Yeah. Well, however we're going to grow them, give your organs to, because if you don't need them, somebody out there is going to, because there's not going to be a trumpet sounding and you're going to get up and go, geez, I'm missing a kidney. It's not going to happen. So all right, so let me close the show out. Until next time we meet, folks, stay blessed. Please remember to like, comment, share, and subscribe. If you want to give to the channel, I all for it. It's not required. There are wonderful people who have given, once again, and I thank them for their generous donations. Remember, like, comment, share, subscribe, and I'll see you next week. We're going to discuss the next 2 episodes of Netflix, and then following that, once we're finally done with the Haunted series, we're going to discuss the House on Haunted Hill, because we never actually covered that one, and that one's a big one. And there's so much that they actually did research into how psychics will actually perceive an environment, especially children, that I want to go over that one in detail for all of you, especially for you folks that have gifted kids. So stay blessed until next we meet. Thank you all, and thank you again, Amber, for joining us.